Welcome back to Second Breakfast. This is our favorite part of the year. This is the fourth year in a row, I believe, if my math is correct, that we are doing our annual Brekkie Awards.
I don't know why I always look forward to this so much. Like, this is one of my favorite episodes to record. I think it's just because, I have a podcast where twice a week I talk about the art of bin consuming. Like, I already have that, but for some reason this just feels like I have an audience whose attention is undivided and I can just sit them down and scream at them for an hour and tell them how much I loved so many things.
I think for me, it's the closest we get to season finales.
Maybe that's what it is.
Because my favorite episodes we've done about books, which are the bigger series we've done over the course of this show, my favorites, I think, are the retrospectives, which are also the hardest and most daunting.
Yeah.
There's so much prep that goes into those.
Sure.
And this is basically a retrospective for the year.
True. But I think what's even better is that I'm only talking about the good stuff. I'm not saying, well, I love Tolkien except for that one bit in Two Towers where I got bored by the trees, you know?
Tommy DeBomba.
So this is more fun. So I'm really excited to get into this. We've got multiple categories, but first we've got a little year in review. Do you want to kick us off, Cam?
Yes, I do. This is the part that took all the time.
This is the part that I didn't have to do anything for. I'm just here.
I think, and I haven't conferred with you, but I think I can say this was by far the biggest and best year for the show.
Totally.
So far.
Yeah.
For Second Breakfast with Cam and Maggie.
100%.
So our 2023 year in review. I want to start at the top. I think one of the biggest things for us is that we launched the Patreon. Mm-hmm. We moved over from Substack. We kind of consolidated our energies with how you can support us. And we really committed to YouTube. So we have had in 2023 more than, oh God, these numbers were before.
Yeah, you did this like a week ago.
Really blew up.
Our Saltburn video is popping off, which has been really fun.
Then I'm gonna just ballpark it and say our YouTube views are near 50,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which is incredible.
That is so exciting.
And thank you to every single one of those 50,000 views.
Truly, that is so cool.
Which is, thousands of watch hours and just people absorbing and talking and communicating about these works of art, because it's not a one-sided conversation.
No, it's not. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm a couple days behind, but I have responded to every comment on our YouTube.
That's the joy of YouTube. Obviously you can do comments and discussions on Instagram and stuff, but the easiest, most efficient way to have discussions about our stuff is on YouTube, and I'm really glad that's opened up so much.
And let's say we have 100% comments. I would say 99% are positive and interesting and thoughtful.
Yeah.
The conversations we've had there, the points people have made, the reflections about different works of art has been incredible. Yeah. So I think as much as I've enjoyed promoting the Patreon and the YouTube and putting work into that and seeing that pay off, it's also the conversations that have come from that.
Totally.
That have been so rewarding. Mm-hmm. So thank you guys so much for that.
Thank you.
To crunch the numbers a little bit, we put out 78 normal episodes this year and 13 bonus episodes over on Patreon for a total of 91 releases in 2023.
That's pretty great.
And I want to quickly kind of blitz through the Patreon episodes because those we do put some extra work into. The first one was my big theory about Tarantino tension.
Oh, that's right.
Between three of his movies, tracking this one kind of scene framework that I thought kept reappearing and being reinterpreted throughout his career. I also did a column. I did some columns for a while this year. That was fun. We've been experimenting with format.
Yeah, we have. It's been fun.
I did a Death to the Multiverse column where I was advocating and explaining why I hate that so much in works of art. I really enjoyed that one.
That was this year?
Yes, it was.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it talked about 65. Which was the Adam
Driver
Driver dinosaur movie.
That movie was so fun.
Operation Fortune, which I think we're the only people who saw that movie. And boy, did we enjoy it.
It was great.
So I'm glad we talked about that one. We did a little villain retrospective about how much we enjoyed Jason Momoa in Fast 10. You did a wonderful piece about A Little Life and arguing that this very sad book is not really a sad book. We talked about The Boogeyman, that Stephen King adaptation, and how it sort of did grief horror correctly for us. We also covered Talk to Me, which was another horror breakout for indie. That one's not on my awards anywhere.
It's not on mine either, but it was really, really good.
We could put that one in honorable mention category.
Talk to Me was fantastic.
Damn, that was a sucker punch of a movie.
Yeah.
We also talked about Salem's Lot, Maggie read through the book and shared her thoughts and opinions about it. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for me, I think the most interesting one that we did this year was about Saw 10.
Yeah.
Because we really like that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was like a lot of great things about Saw 10 and a lot of frustrating things.
Yeah. There was a good movie in there, but it was hidden by a lot of things.
But I think that's true of most of the Saw movies. And like working through the good, the bad, the interesting, the frustrating, I feel like that was a really frank discussion. That it wasn't just dumping on something, and it wasn't like vacuously praising something. It was a real evaluation.
Yeah. So
I was very happy doing that episode on Patreon.
Yeah, that was really fun. Also on Patreon, we sort of towards the second half of the year, we started this our first like Patreon exclusive series, which we called the Breakfast Buffet, which is where we sort of like come together and talk about a bunch of different things, like things that we don't have like enough to like do a full 30, 45 minute, hour long episode about, but we still have thoughts and responses and want to talk about them and share them with y'all. And so we kind of put those together in these different entries of the Breakfast Buffet.
Volumes.
Yeah, we've done 3 volumes so far. We've covered 18 different artworks. In the first volume, volume 1, we covered Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, Five Nights at Freddy's, the original Halloween, Poltergeist, Psycho, and The Invisible Man. Can you tell this was October? Or I think it came out in November, but it was all stuff we saw in October. For volume 2, we covered 1989 Taylor's version. We talked about The Kill's new album, God Games, Cyberpunk 2077, Gotham Knights, The Creator, The Mayor of Easttown, and We Own This City. And then for volume 3, we talked about the 1997 Spawn movie, Eileen, Ridley Scott's Napoleon movie, and Eli Roth's Thanksgiving horror movie. So that was all really fun. I should also say, by the way, 2023 was the year that we got the Alamo season pass, and that has allowed us to see so many movies.
Oh yeah.
If you have been thinking about or are on the fence about getting some sort of movie theater pass, like wherever you live, whatever you have in your town, do it. It is so worth it because you see so many things that you wouldn't normally have taken a risk on or wanted to spend the money on. It's so worth it. I just gotta say,
you discover things you wouldn't otherwise spend $40 on, but also when you see something and it's a stinker and it lets you down, you're fine.
Yeah,
you
because
don't
you're like,
resent it as much.
because I didn't like spend extra money on this.
Right.
I lost time, but that's it. So, all right, go ahead.
Cool. So those are our Patreon episodes. So that's sort of our soft advertisement for Patreon. If you like the work we've been doing this year, head over there because there's a lot more content and episodes and discussions that we've done over there. It's $2 a month and you can get that whole back catalog we just talked about and a new episode, at least one every month. We're already planning the next buffet, which will be volume 4, and that'll be coming out in the next couple weeks. So we also, this is the other biggest thing we did this year. There's the Patreon, there's the YouTube. And for me, the third pillar of what we accomplished with this show this year is our first ever artist interview with Anthony DeBlasi.
That was so much fun.
Who was the writer, director, and editor of Malum, which, spoiler alert, will appear on our awards later.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I'm so glad we got to interview him. He was so delightful. He had so much great stuff to say. He
Generous,
was so interesting.
thoughtful.
Yeah, so kind.
He was incredible. I mean, the movie is fantastic. I think that was the most razor-sharp, punishing, just astounding horror movie I saw this year. And he was as insightful as the movie was fantastic.
Yeah,
that was so much fun. I mean, it was mortifying in the moment. I mean, my whole brain shut down. You'll hear in the first 30 seconds, but
it was so rewarding. It was so fun, and you can hear
so
me.
Interesting.
I was feeling great, and then we started, and I got really, really nervous.
Of course,
it was really funny.
It's intimidating.
No, it was really, really fun.
Yeah. He was fantastic. We also jumped into a brand new literary project. We finished The Witcher just in the course of this year. Chapter by chapter, we did all of The Tower of Swallows, The Lady of the Lake, and then an abbreviated coverage of Season of Storms. And then we did the retrospective.
Yes.
That's a lot of Witcher.
Yeah.
And I think we had some of my favorite discussions we've ever had because there is so much philosophy. There's so many ideas, monumental ideas about destiny and free will and God. There's so much in The Witcher. I just adored those discussions.
Yeah, I'm loving our Game of Thrones coverage, but I do miss The Witcher because it was special and really fun. We also, of course, did a bunch of horror this year. We rechristened or brought back Summerween. But before we even got to Summerween, we covered things like The Descent, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Beau is Afraid, Cloverfield. Oh, so then, for our Summerween series, which is where we cover horror movies over the summer, because summer is terrible. We want to think about fall and Halloween. So we covered Cloverfield, Black Swan, the Insidious Lambert Family Trilogy, As Above, So Below, Jaws, and then after Summerween, just later on, we covered Rosemary's Baby, where we talked about like philosophy, and that was really, really fun.
But we didn't just go to Alamo Drafthouse this year. We also did some really funky left field, is sort of what I'm calling them, episodes.
Oh, that's right.
We did 2 episodes about Succession, and that one popped off really well too.
That's right. Yeah, because
thank you if you're here from that.
Because season 4 aired this spring, so we got to talk about that. That was fun.
One about the many deaths of Logan Roy, and one I watched the whole series out of order, and then I did an episode about what I'm calling the sitcom reset of how the show sort of comes back to center at the end of every hour. I also did a theory about Barbie, the Greta Gerwig's new Barbie movie, being Paradise Lost. We did some discussions about Harry Potter this year. I talked about similarities between Harry and Aragog as Hagrid's children, and I did a column about Michael Gambon's interpretation of Albus Dumbledore after he died. Also, we did, and this is one of my favorites, we did a spirited defense and celebration of Sam Levinson's The Idol.
I totally forgot about that show and our coverage of it.
I didn't.
Until this moment. That's right. That was so fun.
For our big Halloween spectacular, we did a retrospective of Pretty Little Liars.
Oh, that was fun.
We did 2 episodes diving deep into Path of Exile, and we were so rewarded by that community.
Oh, it was so nice.
It wasn't just the views, it was the comments.
Yeah.
It was hundreds of comments, and people were so helpful and kind. I really love doing that. We just did another Path of Exile episode last week.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah,
so go check that out. And I did sort of a back and forth episode about Starfield, the new game from Bethesda, that it might be the best and worst game I played this year. And that was it was really fun grappling with a work of art. Sort of like we talked about with Saw 10. I think it's fun wrestling with something instead of just limiting it to praise.
Yeah, I had a good time sort of talking through that with you and learning about the game and your experience with it. It was really fun.
To rattle off some more movies we did. We finished our Star Wars retrospective. We did Empire Strikes Back. And,
I forgot we fully did all those Star Wars movies. That's right. Just
the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Right, because we didn't like Return of the Jedi very much.
We sure didn't.
Tristan and I talked about Van Helsing. That was so much fun. Maggie and I talked about Emily. I really loved that. That was a gorgeous film.
It's an Emily Bronte biopic. It was really fun.
Sort of Wuthering Heights echoes in her life. The Dungeons & Dragons movie. Again, an unexpected delight. Inside... I did a column on that one too. I think that one was for everyone. That was about the Willem Dafoe movie. We talked about Ben Affleck's Air. That was delightful. Sisu, maybe the best action movie of the year.
Oh yeah.
Skinamarink, another fun horror movie to wrestle with. Blackberry and the 2010s dark capitalism thriller trend that we adore so much.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Sort of a left field pick for us that we really got a lot out of. We did a comedy roundup with You Hurt My Feelings, Bert Kreischer's The Machine, The Blackening, No Hard Feelings, and Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
I love that movie so much.
Oppenheimer. Talked about some theories about the black and white, did some Faustus stuff. I did a little kind of cross-pollination episode about Priscilla, the Sofia Coppola Elvis movie, and The Killer, which is David Fincher's new one, and how they're kind of about the dark capitalism Americana thing.
Yep.
The Holdovers, an unexpected holiday delight.
Oh.
And our big breakout from this year, which was Saltburn. So we had Tristan doing the Greek mythology, me doing Shakespeare and Marlowe, and Maggie with the art history.
Yeah, that was really fun. It was so fun to watch, so fun to talk about, and so fun to see the response that video has gotten.
And as a compliment to the community, that one is an hour of us doing our thing.
Yeah, it's an hour long. That's pretty amazing that y'all wanted to watch an hour long video. Like, that's awesome. So, that's one of our longest
I feel like we've cultivated a wonderful, thoughtful community.
Yes.
Because they didn't respond to the 7-minute Barbie episode. It was the hour of Saltburn.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And to wrap it all up, the other thing that really defined 2023 for us was our coverage of the Diablo series, Diablo being the game. We started out, but because Diablo 4 came out this year, so we started out by doing a Diablo 3 retrospective, where we talked about how much we love Diablo 3. We did almost all these with Tristan, by the way. Tristan's big into Diablo as well. He's the reason that we played Diablo, so thank you, Tristan. We talked about the Diablo 3, and then when the Diablo 4 beta came out, I think Cam, did you just talk about, are you and Tristan? Was I there?
Oh, I don't know. I imagine
whatever.
You were there.
We talked about the beta. And then, of course, we did act by act through the entire story of the campaign of Diablo 4. We did one episode for each act. And then also we talked about the seasons. Like, we really dove into covering Diablo 4 as it evolved, as we played through it, as we tried out different classes. It was really fun to sort of do that in a serialized way.
Look for that season 2 episode in the next few weeks.
Oh, that's right. It's about to come out. That's right, because season 2 ends soon.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, so that was 2023. Now let's sort of culminate and talk about our favorites from the year. We have a few categories. Let me tell you what the categories are from the top, just so y'all know. We have a list of surprises from this year, things that surprised us, our favorite horror, our favorite comic, our favorite book. And then we will sort of end with our big finale where we will do our top 3 new to us in 2023 works of art.
Our discoveries.
Yes, our discoveries didn't come out this year, but we discovered for the first time this year. And then we will end with 2023 releases. So that's sort of the order we're going to go in. So we're going to start at the top with our surprises, our 2023 surprises. We both selected 3 for this, right? Well, I have an honorable mention. Maybe I'll start with the honorable mention.
And this is sudden death, so we're going to be just
we're just going to
alternating
be back
between
and forth,
us.
back and forth. And if anything that we mention that we've had an episode about, we won't get into it, but we will link the episode down below so that you can hear more extended thoughts about each thing. So my honorable mention for a 2023 surprise, meaning it surprised me, it was unexpected, it was not what I thought it was going to be. That's of course Air, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. I did not think I was going to give a shit about a basketball movie, and of course I loved it. So that's out there.
I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah. All right. But what's here? You go ahead.
And
Kim.
these are in no particular order.
Oh, mine are in order.
Oh shit.
It's fine. You go ahead. What's your number 3?
In no particular order. My first one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Oh man, that was so fun.
I don't care about the turtles historically. I mean, I guess they're cool and they're named after painters, so that's fun.
Yeah.
And I like that they're color coded. That keeps it simple. But the art style,
oh my gosh,
the animation in this movie, I still think is better than anything I've ever seen.
It was
in animation.
That was really, really delightful.
And we've seen some barn burners, back from the original Toy Story, which kind of broke open the 3D thing. I think the world of animation has been changing a lot since then. And you have movies like Spider-Verse, which did much better. That was a much bigger movie this year. But for me, that sort of shaky, expressive, hand-drawn, passionate style in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I just think it was one of the most gorgeous things I watched on the screen this year.
Yeah, and the only reason I don't have that on my list is because when I saw the trailers, I kind of thought, oh yeah, I think I'm going to like this, because I saw the art style, and I knew it looked like fun, and the jokes seemed funny and not cringy, and I was like, this is going to be great. And then it was even better than I thought. But my other,
and the Trent Reznor score.
And the Trent Reznor score, hello, famously did The Social Network, if y'all don't know. Yeah, fantastic.
And Gone Girl.
Well, on this trend, I'm mixing up my order now just to go with this. My number 3 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Because I think I liked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles better, but I was much more surprised by Spider-Verse. Okay. So y'all know, I'm so over the superhero thing. I don't even want to talk about how tired I am of it, because I'm tired of hearing myself say how tired I am of it. Okay. But Cam was like, Maggie, we've got to go see this. Like, all of these, the trend is you telling me that we should go see it. And I'm like, okay. And then I come out, I'm like, my life has changed.
For context, listener, we didn't watch Peaky Blinders for like 2 or 3 years because Maggie thought the title was stupid. And now it's one of her favorite shows of all time.
I do still stand by it's a stupid title, but that's irrelevant. No, but Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was so much fun. I mean, again, it comes down to the animation, but the animation style was so special. I loved seeing how they drew New York. I loved Miles as a character. I loved Gwen Stacy as a character. Like the relationships, like we talked about that, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we talked about the movie, but it was
inspired.
It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on my surprise list for sure.
My second surprise, and this is a surprise to me because of my sort of difficult history with the director's other movies, is Beau is Afraid.
Oh, yeah.
And Beau, I mean, apart from Oppie, which we'll get to later, Oppenheimer, Beau is the only movie I saw more than once in theaters. And this was a movie that didn't do very well, right?
Mm-hmm. It didn't.
And I remember the response right when it came out was that it was so long and indulgent, and it was just him dealing with mommy issues for 3 hours. And I think that all of that analysis is horseshit.
Okay.
I think Beau is Afraid is by far my favorite Ari Aster movie, and I think it's definitely the best Joaquin Phoenix performance I've seen.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
It is strange and deep and thoughtful, and there's so much subtext to dig into. There's so much conflicted symbolism and depth to it. It's incredibly funny.
It is, yeah.
And it's so dark and yearning. I just thought that was an incredible film.
Yeah, that one was really fun. I don't think it's my favorite Ari Aster. I think you liked it more than I did, but I still really liked it. And I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it.
Also, the episode we did is me arguing that it is exactly the Frankenstein story.
Yes.
Which is a Faustus story. So
of course, yeah. So that's fun.
I think that's one of my favorite episodes we did this year. Or maybe just sort of writing about a work of art, because it's such a thoughtful examination of those ideas. Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah, it was really fun. My number 2 was another one that I didn't really care about seeing, and Cam made me go see it, and of course I loved it. And that was Godzilla -1. Dear listener, I do not care about Godzilla. I've never cared about Godzilla. I don't care about the big monster destroying the city. So uninteresting to me.
What about this monster? What about this city?
Oh my God, it was so good. It was so good. And so this is a Japanese new Godzilla movie that just came out this year. It's an all Japanese cast. The whole thing's in Japanese, so it's subtitled. It was so good.
We're going to be covering this in the upcoming Volume 4 of The Breakfast Buffet.
Yeah, so we'll get into it there. But basically, it takes place right at the end of World War II, which is interesting because it felt like I was watching a sequel to Oppenheimer, which was really interesting. But it takes place at the end of World War II in the 1940s. And it's just so powerfully emotional. The character work is so good, and even the actual monster is really cool. The way that they do the effects,
the monster.
Like the action, the suspense, the music, the set. Like it's a beautiful movie. I was like so invested. It was
the rousing action, the heroic sacrifice. It hit the same heights for me as Top Gun Maverick.
Right. Yes.
But they made this for $15 million.
Yeah, which is crazy to me.
And the monster, the action, but I was so thrilled by the characters. It wasn't just waiting for Godzilla to come back on screen.
Yes, and a lot of times in an action movie like that, the character stuff is just filler until you get to the next action scene. Here, I was so much more invested in the characters, so that when the action scenes came, they meant so much more. Yeah, Godzilla -1 was truly fantastic.
Incredible.
I don't think you can see it at theater anymore, which is too bad, because I would say it's an incredible theater experience, but still watch it at home.
I think
Turn off the lights,
still
get some
going.
popcorn. It's good.
Yeah, seriously, biggest screen you can find.
Oh my gosh.
This one's unbelievable.
So good.
My third surprise of 2023, and a little peek behind the curtain, this category was originally just 2 entries, but I had to break it open to 3.
I'm so glad we did, because I was able to fit in lots of things.
And this is another movie I'm going to kind of hold myself back on, because we're going to cover it in more detail on the next volume of The Breakfast Buffet. The Iron Claw.
I was going to say, that's my number 1, is the Iron Claw.
Okay, let's talk about this together.
Oh my God.
The Iron Claw. So, like, on one hand, it shouldn't be a surprise, right? It's an A24 movie. We love Zac Efron, Lily James, Holt.
Sorry.
What's his last name from Mindhunter? It's like McEnany, but it's not that.
Yeah.
Tench from Mindhunter.
Yeah.
We love a lot of the actors.
Yeah. Jeremy Allen White, like, of course.
I adore Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise on that level.
Right.
But on paper, it's a movie about professional wrestling.
Yeah, which neither of us care at all about. And we saw the trailer a couple times, and it wasn't a bad trailer, but I remember seeing the trailer and being like, I've seen the whole movie.
My spidey senses were going during the trailer. It's like, there's more to this.
Yeah, but I was like, this is the whole story. It's a family, the dad's hotter than them, there's a tragedy, the baby is born. Okay.
But we also didn't know the history of the Von Erich family.
No.
And if you don't, just go see the movie.
Yeah.
Prepare yourself, but go see the movie.
And if you do know the story, then you know you're about to be in for a ride.
It is some of the most powerful, groundbreaking, devastating drama I've seen this year.
Sorry, go ahead.
The most cohesive family cast since the Family Stone, but they punish you for 2 hours.
I saw a really good tweet. It said that the Iron Claw is Little Women for boys. Because Little Women, especially the Greta Gerwig adaptation, is a lot about
perfect
like
movie.
Sister relationships in a family that has a lot of women in it, and like the growing up with your sisters and how that all works. And this is the same thing but with brothers and with men, and of course in the 70s instead of the 19th century.
I can't remember the last time I was so invested in every character, every moment, every line on screen while holding back tears for 2 hours.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, really.
And if you know, like, it's around Christmas time, so let's say you just rewatched It's a Wonderful Life. The way the last scene makes you feel, imagine that inverted for 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like that.
Astounding drama.
It's so beautiful. And I say, like I've said before, I think the most impressive thing to me is when a movie can be about something that I have no interest in. In fact, I have like a negative interest in it. It's like, I don't like it. I don't care about it. It's not about me at all. Like, I don't identify with anybody like on a surface level, but I can care so much and still love the movie so much. And that's what happened here.
The masculinity, the brotherhood, the father relationships, the cascades, the crescendos. It's just an unbelievable work of art.
And a really interesting like peek into like mental health and generational mental health, especially like in the 70s, not just like now, but it's still made now with a 2023 perspective on mental health and mental illness. But like it was
it was perfect.
It was really, really good.
A wrestling movie.
Is
what is our perfect big surprise of this year.
My God, yeah.
It's so fun. It's so just fun. It's this I never run out of joy for finding great art.
Glad that was at the top for both of us.
Our second big category is 2023 horror movie.
Yeah.
You guys know how much we love horror movies, how much we love the Summerween thing. Maggie, what is your favorite 2023 horror movie?
Well, I hope this isn't cheating because I chose a new to me and not new this year movie.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
I just went through the list of all the horror we did and I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is my show. I can do what I want. It's The Descent. The Descent was so good.
All right.
We watched it for the first time in January of 2023. I had to double check. I like try to write down when we watch stuff for this exact reason. Also just fun to reflect. But that movie just like gripped me, and it was so exciting and tense and stressful and well done. And like it's what I want out of a horror movie.
Ruthless.
It was scary. I was tense. I screamed. Like I was invested in the characters. There were fist pumping moments of revenge, and like, man, The Descent was really, really good.
The way that movie maintains tension and it keeps finding ways to ratchet it tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
It's really, really wonderful.
Also a nearly entirely female cast, which is always fun to see. And like, you don't often get in a horror movie unless it's like, oh, sorority girls, we're all dying, you know. So it was fun. I liked it a lot.
Babysitter pillow fight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
My favorite horror movie of this year, and we saw some killers. I mean, we already talked about Talk to Me, how that was a fun surprise. Things like The Nun 2.
Yeah,
which were
it was delightful.
Luscious.
People hated
on
The Nun 2. I liked it.
I thought that was a beautiful movie. My favorite by a country mile is Malum.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I didn't put Malum because I knew you were going to put Malum.
And we talked about this during the interview. I reframed a lot of my praise as questions because I wanted to know more behind the scenes. But no work of art, including things like Iron Claw and Oppenheimer and all these things that I adored, no work of art has grabbed me by the collar and just dragged me. Just a full sprint for its runtime. I felt like this amazingly talented artist just wanted to show me everything they could do.
Yeah.
The momentum, the passion, the ingenuity of this movie was, I mean, it's my number one. It was
Yeah.
just so damn good.
Yeah, that I'm really excited to rewatch that. I think we
already have. I mean, we've seen
oh,
it
yeah,
twice.
we've seen it twice. Yeah, that's true. We watched it at home right before we interviewed him.
It was as lethal and acidic and razor sharp the second time as it was the first time. And I knew when the scares were coming.
And still it freaked me out, and I can't wait to watch it again.
And I was watching it at home.
Right.
Instead of in that perfect environment of a theater. And it was just as good.
Truly. Yeah, no, Malin was really, really good. If you haven't, I mean, we've talked about it so much, but if you still haven't seen it, man, you got to see it. It was so good.
The visuals.
Yeah.
The demons. That's, I mean, the set, the locations.
And the character work.
The twists. The surrealism. It's so good.
The lore and the supernatural elements. And yeah, man, it was fantastic.
No, I mean, there were a lot much bigger horror movies, right? I mean, look at how great the new Insidious was for being the 5th one in a franchise.
Yeah.
But nothing was just a lightning bolt of, oh God, that's what I want horror to be.
Yeah, like walking out of the theater just like staggered and like nothing will ever be the same.
Yeah.
That one was good. Okay, next category. Our next category is our favorite comic of the year. This can be one issue, it can be a whole series, it can be, the full trade or something. Cam, would you like to go first? What is your favorite comic of 2023?
I might break my rule a little bit here because I do have, just for a second, an honorable mention.
Okay, that's fine.
Mark Silvestri, who's a legend from the 90s, and I think one of the most intricate, detailed, gorgeously rendered comic artists. He spent 8 years working on this Batman series called Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo.
Oh, cool.
It's 7 issues, and it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in a comic. I have never spent so long reading each issue of a comic.
Oh, and just like taking it in and looking at the details. Okay, cool.
And every time a new one came out, and I mean, yes, the story's really interesting. The demons are great. The forced relationship and partnership between Batman and the Joker to work against this larger threat is interesting, but it's the way it's rendered. It's this version of Batman and Bruce Wayne. It's the way he strips back the characters to their essentials and then draws them so unbelievably well. And every time a new one came out, I reread the old one, and I didn't flip through it. I ended up reading it as thoroughly as I read it the first time. It's just such gorgeous, dense work, and it really is, for me, how Batman should be rendered, is the care and thought and passion that character deserves. But I didn't pick that because I wanted to give it to Dark Ride.
Oh, yeah.
So this is Joshua Williamson and Andre Bresson, I believe. And this is an ongoing, it's basically about a family who has a hell and devil themed Disney World. And it's about the trauma and conflict between these two kids who are sort of the heir to that fortune, and the mystery and shadows around their father and how he built it. And maybe he made some sort of deal with the devil to make this thing.
And the kids are adults, I should say. They're grown.
Right. Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's colorful. It's interesting. But the reason I wanted to recognize it here is because it's an ongoing series, and it takes a break in between story arcs. It'll do 4 issues, take a little break, recharge, and then come back with another 4. So it's been going a while now, and we're a couple arcs in. And the way the series tightened up and evolved this year, because the potential was incredible in the first few issues. The way that it introduced this world of Devilland and all of these rides and the characters, the introduction was so promising. But we've been into comics long enough to see that promise fizzle out.
Totally.
And the way this series strengthened and focused in on the stuff that worked and paid off that promise as it has continued is why I want to recognize it here. Because they did a couple issues in the latest arc about the relationship with the dad, and you could tell they were doing like some Succession level work with these characters.
Cool.
The twists, it's just... It has stuck the landing after that initial first impression, and I'm so excited to see where it goes. It really feels like they deeply care about these characters and the future of this story, and you can feel that on every page. So awesome. I have adored Dark Ride.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I read the first couple issues and I really liked it. I stopped reading not because I wasn't enjoying it. I've been in a weird spot with comics and I just haven't been reading them. I just haven't really felt like reading them, but
It's also scary and gross, I should say. Like the way it sticks the landing of you only get a chapter of this every month. Mm-hmm. So on the last page, we're gonna hit you with a curveball.
Yeah, real fun.
It is so satisfying.
Yeah, no, I did love what I have read, and I'm really excited to read the other issues that we already have. So yeah, glad you mentioned that. I just said I haven't been reading comics, but there's one that I did read, and it's not winning because it's the only one I read. It's winning because it fucking deserves spotlight time, and that is Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. Dear listener, I've talked about Heartstopper before. I think in 2022 we did a big readathon episode, and I read all of Heartstopper volumes 1 through 4, that's all that was out at the time, and devoured it and fell in love with it and cried over it. And then a couple months later, I reread the entire series just to feel something, and it was so good. And volume 5 came out a few weeks ago, and this is not just because like recency bias, I just read it, so I'm still excited. Like, if this had come out January 1st, it'd still be the top of my list. This was so good. If you don't know, really quick, Heartstopper is about two British high schoolers, Charlie and Nick, who have a love connection, and they deal with all of the complications of being in your first big relationship when you're a teenager, coming out and figuring out your sexuality when you're a teenager, dealing with mental health, family stuff, trying to figure out where am I going to go to university? How is that going to affect my relationship with my partner, with my friends, with my family? How do I help my partner who has a mental health problem, but I am not equipped to help them? Like, it deals with so many big emotional adult things, but from a like adolescent perspective in this just really beautiful way. It handles everything so well, and I feel like it's such a nice salve next to something like Euphoria or Sex Education, which are really great shows and have really great character work, but I don't think accurately portray a high school experience. I really think those shows are about adults just in teenage bodies and not
my high
even
school experience was exactly like Euphoria.
Yeah, right. Like, I love those shows and stories, but like, man, that is not what most people are doing when they're 15 years old. They're still like half children and awkward and like not confident in themselves and like don't know how to talk about like sex and how I like talk to boyfriends. Like, it's so awkward, and this series captures all of that so
the show is
well.
fantastic as well.
The show is really, really good. They've done 2 seasons on Netflix, and that's also really fantastic.
And I think it makes it a more potent counterpoint to those shows that you're mentioning.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is so like sweet, but also really intense at the same time. I read the entire volume in an hour and cried.
Yes, you
did.
Man,
Heartstopper is and I know there's a lot of hype around it, the way that there's a lot of often hype around like YA stuff. And you'll know, I don't like YA, but I like this and I love it so much. I
like that we both have a weakness for writer artists.
Yeah, I was gonna say Alice Oseman writes and draws this whole series, and it started out on what is that website where there's free comics on there? Webtoon. It started out as a webtoon, and then it got so popular that it was then turned into books that had then been printed and sold. And the book copies are gorgeous, but you can read almost the whole series on Webtoon if you want to do it that way.
And that's how it.
That's how I started, and then of course I bought the entire series so I could reread it in physical form at my leisure. But oh my god, it's so beautiful. I can't recommend it enough.
Our next category is our favorite book in 2023, and this is either a release or a discovery.
Yes. Want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay, so mine is a discovery, and that is A Little Life by Hana Yanagihara. I was going through my Goodreads from this year, and I was like, my favorite book, the best book I read this year was A Little Life.
Okay.
We did a whole episode about it. It's on our Patreon. You can go check it out. I won't get into it, but this book really shook me and had a deep, profound impact on me in a lot of ways. It was so emotional to read through when I read it, and then I feel like it really shook my worldview and sort of impacted the way I see everything. I think about it still, and I finished it in like July.
It's like the Iron Claw without the wrestling.
Right, yeah. And like everybody knows, that book is intense. If you need content warnings, you should look at them if that's something that you need to do. But it's a really special book, and it got a lot of hype on like Book Talk and shit, and everybody was like filming themselves reading it and crying and like whatever.
Very natural.
Sure. Yeah, but like ignore all that.
Yeah.
The book is fantastic,
Right.
and it's like beautifully written, but you got to be in the right place mentally to read it. I do have to say that. I feel like I have to say that. But man, that book really affected me. It was a beautiful book. What did you select?
Well, as everyone knows, I am a Watergate girly.
That's your Roman Empire, is the Watergate
It
scandal.
is. It is. And I have to relapse every few years into every book I can find about Watergate.
Just to dive right back in.
And of course, the crown jewel there is All the President's Men, which is one of the greatest books and probably the greatest movie of all time. And this year I went a little deeper with my Watergate coverage. And I talked about this a little bit when I read it the first time. It was one of our summer episodes. But I read the next Woodward and Bernstein book that they wrote about Watergate. Between them, they've done, I don't know, 4 or 5. And they're all interesting lenses on that really tumultuous period in history. But their second one is called The Final Days. And this was the book that they stepped back from the Washington Post to finish after the runaway success of the first book. And it is so different. It's so different that I almost didn't like it at the beginning.
Like different from All the President's Men?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it is not a personal, like, character-based thriller where the reporters are the leads. It's not chasing them through the paranoia and explosion of this story.
So it's not that like fun, like mystery narrative, basically.
I might be wrong. I don't think I am, but I don't think their names are mentioned.
Oh, wow.
So they're writing it, but they are not characters.
Okay.
They are not leads.
They're truly just reporting and not talking about their experience of reporting.
And you can still feel the balance of their interests and their voices.
Okay.
But this is after they have the success of the first book. And what that means, on a practical level, is they have access to a lot more people. And it's called The Final Days. It is about the end of the Nixon administration.
Cool.
And it reads like a horror book. Not that it's scary, but that it is haunted.
Okay.
And the desolation of Richard Nixon and that administration is so fascinating, because part of it is like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And part of it is just him like wandering the halls talking to himself.
Oh, okay.
And the balance of those things and following these different chiefs of staff and the way these layers flake off and the lawsuits pile up and you see this just crushing impending doom. It's a world you want to like take a shower from when you finish the book, but it is so oppressive and thick and fascinating, and there's such a web going on. I've never had an experience like it. Reading, watching, viewing, whatever. This was a unique experience in the world of art. And yes, it's nonfiction and it's reporting, but there is a narrative happening here, and there are solid characters. And
That's really cool.
It's just a really unique experience I had this year.
I love that. You did the audiobook, right?
Yes, I did.
Was the narrator anybody special, or was it just a...
It was, I believe it was Holter Graham, who I adore from Fire and Fury.
Oh, okay,
and those
cool.
other books.
Yeah, and you love those books too.
Yeah, the Michael Wolff Trump books. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Fantastic, yeah.
So he's used to covering, political catastrophe.
Yeah.
And he has such an authority in the way he performs these stories and these characters.
That's very cool.
There's a bluster that I think sells a character like Nixon, who, yes, he's a real person, but you have to make sense of him almost as a literary figure. It's sort of how we talked about Napoleon a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to wrestle with the fact that these people were real because they feel so fictionalized and Forrest Gump. Like there's too much that happens in this one person's life. It's hard to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And he does a great job bringing that to life with his voice.
That's excellent. I feel like we don't get to talk about that kind of media, like those kind of stories on here very much. So that's...
We're busy covering fantasy every Friday.
Right, yeah. So that's pretty cool.
It takes a lot of our time.
Yeah, love that. Okay.
Time for the big boys.
Time for the big boys. So we're going to start with new to us in 2023. Didn't come out this year, but we discovered, experienced for the first time this year. I've got an honorable mention. We both have 3, our top 3, but I also have an honorable mention. Do you mind if I start?
That's fine.
My honorable mention is Tenet.
Okay.
We wanted this
All
year.
right.
We wanted to really dive into Christopher Nolan, among some other directors who we just kind of felt like we had needed to catch up on.
Our boys,
as we call them. And we watched Tenet back in January. It's a fantastic movie. It was so screwed over by COVID, which is so disappointing. An understandable situation, but a fantastic movie.
Tragic.
It did not get its due. Go check it out on streaming. Tenet's really, really good. But okay. Do you want to go? You want to start with your number 3? Are they in any order?
No, they're not.
Okay, we'll just pick one.
I'll just go out of order a little bit.
Okay.
My first one for 2023 Discovery. For my favorite works of art that I stumbled upon this year.
And this can be movies, TVs.
Any medium.
TVs, movies, TV, books, like anything.
It's Pretty Little Liars. Is that not on your list?
No, it's not. I mean, I loved Pretty Little Liars, but okay, I'm so excited to hear you say.
Well, I'll try not to repeat myself because
Yeah,
I talked
we did a
about all of
whole
this.
special on this, but
That Halloween episode's a lot of fun.
It
Go
really
check
was
that one
fun.
out. But I have not had more fun watching something with you.
yeah.
I mean, maybe my honorable mention is watching Mission Impossible 2 with you this year because I've never seen a movie click with you so hard.
I fucking loved Mission Impossible 2. It was so good.
Specifically the second one.
Specifically that
The
one.
big, goofy, self-serious one. I
Yeah.
mean, you were a pig in shit.
I was
you were
in it.
so happy
I
during
was
that movie.
living.
Rolling around in the mud, but Pretty Little Liars.
Oh my God.
We both rolled around in the mud for months on end.
For
because
so-
it
like
took
6
us,
months.
It took us a long-ass time to get through that series.
It did.
And it was so delightful.
It was so much fun. That show is so much fun. I mean, it is a commitment and you got to push through a lot of shit. But like that's what the show is. It's like watching the Saw movies.
The more convoluted it gets, the more I smile.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate couples show. I made that argument during our Halloween episode.
Yes.
It's goofy, it's fun, it's farcical, it's soap opera-y, it's dramatic, and it's a comedy sometimes on purpose, sometimes not.
Sometimes it's trying to be horror. Like
The
it's
chemistry is
so fun.
genuinely great between the cast.
Yeah, it is.
Their performances are all interesting and rewarding and memorable. It's just a great show.
Plus, you occasionally
It was
get
so much fun.
a really terribly directed episode directed by Chad Lowe. That's also really
Or
fun.
a beheading.
Or you get someone literally gets beheaded.
Uh-huh.
That happens in this show. Man, season 7 was nuts. Okay. Well, on a similar note, this is going to be my number 1, but it makes sense to talk about it. One of my top 2023 Discovery was The Sopranos. Okay, we started watching it in 2022, but we finished in March of 23, so it still counts. Cam had seen The Sopranos before. I had never watched this show. We had tried to watch the first season back when I was in grad school, and I don't know, I think my brain was just overloaded, and I wasn't in the right mindset to take in a big drama, so I didn't like it. But we came back to it, and oh my gosh, I loved this so much.
And we worship at the altar of HBO dramas.
Yes, we do. And like, I used to be not a big fan of anything like mob movies, mob stories. Like, I don't care. Like, as I call them, they're greasy men movies. Like, I just don't care about a bunch of dudes who all look the same and they all cheat on their wives and they're all gross and they all use jargon that I don't understand because I'm not from New Jersey and I'm not Italian. But man, The Sopranos is, hot take, The Sopranos is an amazing show, like, obviously, but I loved this. You kind of have to get past the hump, like if you're not like big into mob stories, you have to get past the learning curve of like what the fuck they're talking about. But like 2 episodes in, you're fine. And it's so funny and the characters are so good that you can just move past it. Subtitles do help. I gotta say, the subtitles help because a lot of their names are similar, so it helps to see the names on screen. Also, sometimes they're using jargon and phrases that I'm like, oh, that's just literally a jumbled Italian word, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not just mishearing. That's just a made up word they created just now. The Sopranos is fantastic. I mean, the character work is the best part, and that's my favorite part in any story is character work, and it's really phenomenal. I loved going through that series with you.
The writing, the performances.
The performances are so good. Oh my gosh, they're so good.
We were at a pizza place one time and we had a really nice discussion about the female characters.
Yeah. Edie Falco as Carmela is one of my favorite performances ever. But not even just her, like Adriana. Oh, Adriana is so good. And even Meadow is fantastic. Like, and what is Artie wife? What's her name?
Damn it.
Charlene, Charmaine. Anyway, she's great. Like, it's a really fantastic show. And if you're like going, toxic masculinity, like just put your big boy pants on and watch the show and appreciate it for what it is. And it's not glorifying any of this.
Not.
It is so obviously pointing to the
Watch
problems.
the last season.
Yeah, it is pointing to the problems of all of this.
But it's
and
also
how dangerous it is and how toxic it is and how it fucks up everybody.
But it's also just telling one of the greatest stories ever with some of the most towering performances in fiction.
And of course, if you loved Breaking Bad, this is the blueprint for Breaking Bad. Like the
and everything
anti-hero.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. Yeah. Man, I loved The Sopranos. That one was fun. Okay, what's another discovery for you, Cam?
I'm glad you big dogged me by going Sopranos after PLL.
It just felt like those are like the two shows we watched this year was PLL and The Sopranos. Okay.
My discovery, and this is maybe a little more along the lines of your Tenet analysis, is Birdman.
Yeah, I almost had Birdman on here.
How did that one slip through the cracks when it came out for both of us? Because that would have been one of our favorite movies.
It came out in what, 2012, I think?
Like
so we were freshmen in college. Like, I don't know. We were doing other things. We didn't know. We didn't know any better.
I love Michael Keaton. I love Edward Norton. I love most of the cast of this movie. But the way this world was rendered, the way that it works as one shot, and we've talked about that in terms of like 1917 and some of the other movies we've seen that have pulled off this trick, which it seems so impossibly difficult to do. The way that this world feels, the way that you move through the labyrinth of this playhouse and you get the tension of all of these characters intersecting. Emma Stone is unbelievable.
Oh, she's so good.
It was such an electric movie, and I mean, it felt like the big bar was coming up at the end of the movie, like I was getting off a roller coaster. But it dove so deep into characters' psyches while being so much about the connections between them. It's about theater. It's about creativity, the awful, terrible, beautiful process of creativity, and whether it's a plateau or a block or aspirations and ambitions and memory and possibility, it's so much about creativity, but it's also about family and friendship. It was, I don't know, there's too much to almost get into, but if you want a movie about a guy who used to play Batman and now he's trying to resurrect his career by doing a very self-serious classic play. And it's about the psychology that is destroying all of these people. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's the director of The Revenant, I believe.
Oh, cool.
And it is as intense as that movie. And you're just running through the rooms of like an off-Broadway stage.
Yeah. It was really, really fantastic. Like, yeah, we totally missed the boat on that one. And then like it's, 10 years later, it's still fantastic. So yeah, that one was fun. Another one of mine for discoveries is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yep.
We saw that for the first time this year, and we did an episode about it, didn't we? Yeah, we did an episode about it. And like, oh my God, fantastic movie. The best Dracula adaptation I've seen. The costumes and sets are so fantastic in this movie. Gary Oldman, one of my favorite performances from Gary Oldman ever. Like, so overtly sensual and dark and gothic and romantic and exactly what a Dracula story should be.
And varied.
Yeah,
he's got like 12 character models.
Truly, yeah. It was a beautifully done movie. Yeah. I loved this adaptation of Dracula. It was a big surprise for me. I mean, I knew people had talked about it and said it was great, but I went in going like, I haven't seen a good Dracula, and I don't think I ever will. And then, of course, I saw one, like the best Dracula I've ever seen. Yeah, so that's the Francis Ford Coppola one, right? So yeah, really, really excellent.
The little glasses, the top hat,
oh my God,
the werewolf form.
When he licks the shaving blade with the blood, oh man, that's the whole shaving scene is so good. The whole thing is so good.
I think it might be the best gothic operatic sexuality I've ever seen on screen.
Yeah. Like if you saw Crimson Peak and you were like, I like the aesthetics of that movie, but the story kind of fell flat. The characters weren't great. Just see this instead because it's way better. I mean, I love parts of Crimson Peak, but it was so not there.
I feel like we're kind of missing the forest for the trees here. It's much better than the book.
Oh yeah, I should say that. Yeah, is so much better than the book. We have such a complicated relationship with the novel Dracula because it starts out so great and then it just falls so flat.
It's got the best 50 pages of any book ever.
This is fantastic all the way through. Yeah, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
We'll revisit
loved
this
it so
next
much.
Christmas when Robert Eggers' Nosferatu comes out.
Cam, do you know how fucking excited I am for that movie? But that's for another time.
So I did rank this one. My number one 2023 discovery is God of War.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. So, the 2018 game, yes?
Yes. So this was my first year playing any of the PS5, PS4, any of those games, revisiting. I got to do things like Spider-Man that were incredible. I adored those experiences. God of War hit me like a freight train for 20 hours. And it's not just sort of the personal connection I have to it, because it's a story about a father and son trying to get to a place to scatter the mom's ashes. And I didn't know that was part of it. I thought it was Greek mythology, Norse mythology, big beard, fun action with a big axe. I thought that's what it was going to be. And it does have my favorite combat system in any game ever.
Wow.
But it is the story and the presentation, the motion capture for the performances. Christopher Judge as Kratos.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like it. I mean, it's in the same conversation as James Gandolfini as Tony Soprano, and Bryan Cranston as Walter White. Mm-hmm. It needs to be talked about in that context, because this is not just voice acting. I mean, just voice acting. How pejorative and shitty does that sound? As a voice actor, but this is a full body inhabitation of a character, and the way he brings Kratos to life as a father, the regret, the pain, the silence he has every time he almost touches Atreus's back.
Oh, yeah, I know.
The way that relationship between them develops, the way the supporting cast evolves and emerges. I mean, you haven't even... Maggie's been playing through the game.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it, yeah.
And I'm trying to kind of hedge what I'm saying, because I don't want to ruin a single thing about it for you. But the whole game is built to be a one-shot. And as much as I liked Birdman, the best one-shot thing ever made has to be this game.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's also, I mean, it's carrying there are no loading screens.
Yes.
There's nothing that breaks ever.
It's a seamless...
It's one shot.
Seamless transition between gameplay and cutscene. Like, there's no, like, fade to black and then there's a new cutscene. And there's no, like, oh, I got to location, now the game can reload into a new scene. Like, it is just beautifully seamless.
There's more thought and passion in this series. And Ragnarok's great. The sequel, very good. They just had an expansion a week ago. That was amazing. But that first game is so tight and focused on these characters. Apparently that one-shot thing is a sort of a callback to Greek drama, which usually took place in one continuous scene.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. That's really interesting.
What they have to do on a technological level to make that work without you ever noticing.
Because you can move the camera around. Even during, like, scenes where characters are in dialogue, like, you can move the camera around.
But the writing, the sound design, the art direction, the characters, the performances, the way that they stick the landing emotionally and wrap this whole story up together and still leave room for, an amazing sequel a couple years down the line. It is up there with the most complete and gorgeous and mystifying works of art I've ever been able to experience. I mean, it was just me with my big headphones on at my desk.
Yeah.
Just eating up every second, every side quest, every line of dialogue. There are moments where you'll be going between locations on this little boat and you're paddling, and you'll be having a conversation or hearing a story with another character. And you'll reach the destination. And the boat, the little button will pop up for you to dock the boat and get out. And if you do that, the character will stop telling the story and say, we'll get back to this later.
Yeah.
And they'll keep going the next time you're at the boat. Not once did I get off the boat.
Because you wanted to finish the conversation.
Because I was so in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And every moment, as much attention as I gave it, as much deference as I gave this world and I gave myself to it, it was there with an open hand showing me some of the best anything I'd ever seen.
I mean, every time I looked over at you, you looked like you were having a spiritual experience.
It's, and this is a word I sort of avoid, I guess, but it is one of the more profound works of art. And it hit me harder.
Yeah.
Than maybe anything. Definitely more than any game. I mean, there are nostalgic things that hit me hard in games.
Right.
A game I played when I was young and a couple sequels later they kill a main character. That hits me.
Sure.
I cry at that, sure.
Sure.
But God of War from start to finish.
Yeah, you're usually not that invested in the story elements of a game, in my experience. Like, if the story is good, you like it, you pay attention, but you seem to be much more focused on the gameplay elements of it. The, what do I get to do? The combat, the puzzles, the finding things, the exploration. But the story is so front and center in this game, and it was so powerful for you.
They crafted something timeless and titanic here. And yeah, it was just... It was one of the best parts of my year. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you got to play that. My number one, Sopranos was kind of up there, but my last one, my 2023 discoveries, is There Will Be Blood, which is another greasy men movie that I didn't want to see, but like Cam had seen it a year or two previously, and they were showing it at Alamo. It was like a late night showing, and Cam was like, we gotta go see it. And I was like, okay, fine. And like, you had told me I would like it, and I was like, I believe you, but I don't know. And so, but then of course we saw it, and that movie was transformative.
Just a little $25 million indie.
Oh my God. Yeah. And so
remember Killers of the Flower Moon was 200.
It is starring Daniel Day-Lewis
and Paul Dano.
And Paul freaking Dano, man. So it's like turn of the 20th century oil, okay? And I was like, I do not care. Again, like the Iron Claw, they're taking a subject matter and types of characters that I don't give a shit about, and then they made it absolutely fantastic. The score in this movie, the directing, the character work, the tension, the like, it's a very like tense and stressful and sad movie, and so beautifully done.
Another compliment I try to be pretty sparing about because it means a lot to me. This is one of the only works of drama I've ever seen that has risen to the level and the heights of Shakespearean drama.
It feels very Shakespearean. Yes, that is really true. Yeah, I try to be not too giving with that word, not too generous, but man, this movie feels like that. And it's long. It's a long movie, but it doesn't feel long. Like it deserves that much time because it feels like an epic.
And every minute of it is creeping,
mounting,
my gosh, dread,
the stress, the dread, the tension, but also then like the ending is so good. And like Paul Dano is fantastic in everything he's in, but like this is like, it's very similar to his performance in The Batman as the Riddler, but of course like a much more grounded, like normal person. It's really, really good, man. This was so good. The tension
between those two.
Oh my God.
I think that the balance between those performances is the most incredible part of that movie.
Yeah.
Because obviously the more starry, easy to reward and recognize part is Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes.
But I think Paul Dano, as like writhing and desperate and insecure and power hungry as he is, it is so understated.
Yeah.
It's like if you take Jason Bateman out of Arrested Development, the whole show falls apart.
Right.
Paul Dano is doing that, but he's also doing this like Shakespearean side character.
Yes.
Where he has that like nasty little schemer right under the surface.
Yes. Well, and the movie is like, it's pretty like slow, like, but doesn't feel like slow. It's just, it's taking its time and building that tension and dread. Like the first, I don't know, 8 minutes, there's no dialogue. It's just silent. There's a little bit of music and some sound effects, but like, it sets you up from the beginning, like this is the kind of movie it's going to be, and you were just in it the whole time. It was pretty phenomenal.
It's got one of the more memorable scores ever.
The score was really, really good. You know me, I love a good score. Yeah. So yeah, There Will Be Blood was a wonderful surprise for me, and I'm so glad I discovered it. Thank you for making me go see it. You're always right, and I'm sorry, but
you got there in the end. I'm just glad you've gotten to enjoy these things because I know what you like at this point.
Yeah, it was pretty special. I loved it.
I think that means it's time for
the
big category. Our
so
very favorite 2023 releases.
Okay. So this was the hardest one to choose, obviously. Like, it was just hard. Because I had so many ones that were at the top for me, which is my way of saying I have an honorable mention for this one. So you'll just have to deal. So do you mind if I start?
Sure. Okay. I think we're going to have 2 out of 3 that are exactly the same.
Well, okay.
So I'm interested for a little more diversity here.
Well, we'll get there. Okay. My honorable mention is The Holdovers.
Yes.
Because we did an episode about The Holdovers, so I won't get into it here, and it's an honorable mention, but it was so good. And so, like, I remember seeing a trailer and thinking, this is probably going to be good, but it was really, really good. Fantastic, like, Christmas movie as well. So if you're still in the, like, holiday mood, it's a really great one for that. I can't recommend that one enough. And it's a good one to watch with your parents. I feel like there are so few movies now that are fun to watch with your parents, either with, like, because you have such different interests, or there's, like, way too much sex in it and it makes it weird. This movie is so good to watch, like, with your whole family. Adult family members, but, like, it's so good. I'll say that. Okay. Cam, what is your number 3? Are these in order?
No.
Okay.
Because we decided not to do an order.
I thought we did, but whatever. Okay, just pick one. Which one would you first like to talk about?
I'll start with the meatball, the
Okay.
elephant in the room.
Okay.
Let's talk about Oppenheimer.
Oh, I was going to say that for the end, but okay. Because that's my number one.
Let's get it out of the way.
Is Oppenheimer.
All right.
That is my absolute number one. And we did an episode about Oppenheimer, but it's on YouTube. It's like, I think it's in 3 different videos. It was or 2 different videos. It was kind of a longer discussion, but y'all know how much we loved that movie. And as I was thinking about this, I was like, it's so hard to get past your own bias when you're trying to like do like over the course of a year, what was my favorite thing, right? Because you either have, well, I just saw it, so I have recency bias, like it's still in my head, so of course I'm still excited about it, and so like that excitement hasn't died down, so it's my favorite. Or if you saw it a long time ago, it's like there's a concern that you have romanticized that experience, and well, was it actually that great, or was I just excited when I saw it, and now I look back on this like this fond memory, or was it actually good? And I gotta tell you, we saw this movie in July, or actually it might have been August by the time we were able to see it because we were out of town. But we saw this movie, 4 or 5 months ago. And I think about it at least once a week. And every time I do think about it, I literally get goosebumps. And I just think about how transformative that movie is.
Every clip you hear of the music.
I lose my mind. On my Spotify Wrapped, dear listener, I'm a big Swiftie, okay? My number 1 was Taylor Swift. My number 2 was, what is it, Ludwig Göransson. The
composer.
The composer. I think it was like score writer. The composer for Oppenheimer. Like that, I listened to that score so much. It was so, because it made me think. I mean, it's a good score, but also because it made me think about the movie. It made me think about the themes and ideas of that movie. And every single part of that movie is perfectly done. Like, it is firing on every single cylinder. And I cannot find a single flaw with that movie. And that is, it is just so wonderfully done and so impactful. The single flaw
is that we can't find it in 70mm IMAX near us.
That's the one flaw. Yeah. I can't believe how good that movie was. And I know there are some people out there still who don't want to watch it because, it's 3 hours long. Who cares about a guy who made the bomb? That's terrible.
We've got to leave those people behind at this point.
Yeah, like get on the train or leave. Yeah, that was a really fantastic movie.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we got to see it.
And it didn't just feel like one night of the year that we spent watching the movie because we thought about it. We talked about it for so long. We saw it 3 times. But even we only put out the episode a couple months after the movie initially came out. So this really was something that was part of my year.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, it was this great thing that I saw, and then I was like excited about it for a day, and then I moved on. Like, it was so part of our lives for so long. Yeah, Oppenheimer was really special. That is okay. I knew we were both going to have that one on our list, so we got that one out of the way. Excellent. Well, can I do my next one? Just because, actually,
is it the other one that we're both going to have?
No, because I decided not to put it on here for some diversity. So why don't you talk about it?
Okay. Well, okay. So Saltburn, is my other one, and we kind of talked about this between us because we wanted it to have some sort of representation on the list because I think it meant so much to both of us, as you can tell throughout that hour-long episode that we did with Tristan.
I'm really proud of that episode. That was a fun discussion.
Yeah, I think that might have been the most fun. I had a lot of fun doing the Diablo episodes with Tristan. Those were a joy, but this was really something special because hearing him talk about the Greek mythology echoes and chase all of those little riffs and references through this movie was maybe the most excited I've ever been, like waiting to hear from a theory from one of you guys because it was fascinating. I mean, we both sound like the aliens in Toy Story when he's talking. Just But I was so excited for that, and the what we all brought to that movie and the experience of seeing it twice. It's so beautiful. It's so rich. It was such a euphoric experience. It really just felt like. Watching the bat connect perfectly with the ball. Yeah. And just knock it out of the park. Yeah. I adored that movie.
Me too.
If you want more thoughts on that, again, that's the episode over on YouTube or the podcast.
That's a really, really good movie. Not one to watch with your parents. I will say that. I wouldn't recommend that.
It just went further.
Yeah.
It did what I always want screenplays to do. Because that's almost always my frustration when a movie doesn't land where I wanted it to, it's always the screenplay.
Yeah, it was a brilliant screenplay.
At least this year. And this one went further. I mean, even I would have this errant thought of what if it went there, and then it did it, and then it went past that. It was. I said this in the episode. It felt like she was calling the bluff of the audience throughout the film, and I just thought that was so daring and inspiring.
Yeah, I actually like when I remember when we walked out of the theater the first time we saw it. I was like, I think Oppenheimer was still a better movie, but man, I really, really liked this movie.
We said Oppenheimer was a better movie, but this was our favorite.
Yeah, I was more attached to this one. But yeah, truly fantastic movie. I can't believe that and Oppenheimer came out in the same year. Okay, my other one, or my second of three, is because Saltburn was not on my list. Is it's kind of a movie, it's kind of not, and I chose this because. Not because it was like my favorite thing, but because it was so impactful for me this year. And that is Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. So I went to the Eras Tour back in April when she came to Arlington. And I wasn't planning to go because if y'all know, or if you don't know, getting tickets for this show was and still is an absolute like bloodbath. Like it is crazy trying to get tickets. They are getting like they're like so marked up and so expensive. People reselling and Ticketmaster, like it's all kind of drama.
The tour has made $1 billion.
Yeah, and so when the tour was announced, I was like, I'm not going to go to that show. Like I can't afford to go to that show. Whatever. Cam probably doesn't want to go. Like it's not going to happen. I was able to go because a friend of mine was going with a group of friends that live in her town. But one of them was flying in and the friend's flight got canceled, which I feel so bad for her. That's so terrible. But so they had this extra ticket. And so she called me and she was like, hey, do you want to buy this ticket and come to the Eras Tour with me? And I was like, okay. And so I did last minute. And oh my God, it was so good. So if you're a Swiftie, you know, and I'm going to bore you. But if you're not, I need to explain to you. Taylor Swift has been making music for now like 18 years. And this tour is a show that includes music from every single one of her albums. And so and her albums are so varied and there's so much variety like throughout her musical career. She started out as country, then moved kind of into pop, and then she's done some more like folksy stuff, and she's kind of like done all kinds of things. And so it includes all of those things. And it was simultaneously nostalgic for somebody like me who grew up listening to Taylor Swift in high school. And also like a fun way to see like her new music on tour, like from Midnight's, Folklore, Evermore, even Lover, because her Lover tour got canceled right as COVID hit. So like she wasn't able to tour her last 4 albums. And so we got to see those here. And it was just cool to see her. And it's a 3-hour show. She does 40 songs, which is a lot. She's like on stage solidly for 3 hours, like singing the entire time. And she's just a really magnetic performer. And her music is like, I think obviously great. And like there's some things I do like, some things I don't like, but overall it was just so much fun. And so I got to do that, and that was really special. And then of course, over the course of this year, she re-released Speak Now in 1989. We talked about 1989, Taylor's version, on one of our breakfast buffets on our Patreon, I think on number 2. Go listen to that. But so that was also fun. So like after seeing the show and like having these albums re-released, I just kind of dove back into her music a lot more than I had been. And so that also like sort of defined my year in a really cool way. And then of course she released the film version of her tour, which I got to see in theaters with a couple of my friends. And that was also really, really fun to like see the tour again in a new way, especially because when I had gone, I was like way up in the nosebleeds. So, you know, there were screens that I could see, but like getting to see all these like beautiful up close shots was also really, really cool. So, I mean, I think the movie's fantastic. If you didn't get to go to the show, but you're curious, I recommend streaming the movie. It is $19.89, which is stupid but funny. So keep that in mind. But like, you know, that's like a price of a movie
ticket. What an expensive meme.
I know. It's the price of a movie ticket. What are you gonna do? But still, I think it's worth it, and it was great. It's really, really good. So that was really special for me. I think we need to come together as a community and convince Cam to watch it, but you know, we'll get there. So that's my number 2.
So I mean, I don't have much to say about that. I'm
very
happy you got so much out of the experience. and that I had to listen to so much of it in the car.
You're welcome.
So my three, doing the final of my three entries here for the 2023 releases, I have Saltburn, I have Oppenheimer, and then the last one's a bit of a wild card, and I am the only person to have this on my end of year list. I said something in the car the other day to Maggie. I said that the older I get, the more interested I am in artists whose work I love, the more interested I'm in their difficult works. Things that aren't... an example I would go to is the White Stripes, Get Behind Me, Satan. So that's the album after Elephant's the album with Seven Nation Army. That was their big breakthrough. It wasn't made to be mainstream, but it ended up being that way. It's got Ball and Biscuit with all those amazing squirrely guitar solos on it.
Ball and Biscuit's on Get Behind Me, Satan?
No, on Elephant.
Oh, okay, sorry, gotcha.
So they make Elephant, they have all these huge radio singles and big rock songs on there, and more of that smoky, bluesy energy that they're so good at. And that puts them in another stratosphere of popularity. So their next album is Get Behind Me, Satan. That's the one where he has the little mustache and the little beard.
Yes,
He's got the big hat.
Oh, I can picture the album cover, yeah.
And that album doesn't have any electric guitars on it.
Oh, okay.
And it's much weirder and harder to get into. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a volatility and a darkness to that album. There's a marimba on that album. I think it's artistically fascinating, but much less accessible than any of their other albums. And the older I get, the more I'm interested in projects like that, which don't have to be someone's best, whatever that means, but I think there's something interesting and difficult, and I like grappling with those works of art, especially if they are messy. So my third entry here is The Idol.
Oh, okay.
And this is another one we did an episode on, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much, but that episode was a defense of the show. A show that week to week we were really enjoying.
Yeah, totally.
And everyone else was being so pissy, holier than thou, and condescending about. And I liked the excesses of that show because it wasn't as evenly paced and crafted as Euphoria, but I think the highs that it hit were higher than Euphoria. And yes, it had messier lows and more regularly, but I think the performances were so go for broke. We talked so much about what we admired from The Weeknd in that role, and how I can't believe how far Lily Rose Depp pushed herself in that performance. It's so expressive and yearning and vulnerable. I just thought that show was amazing. And if you have a fantastic supporting guest role from Eli Roth, you're gonna make my list.
I'm gonna watch it. Yeah.
I really loved that show. I thought it ended really strong. I love that it's 5 episodes. I get to make a little Shakespeare comparison with it being 5 acts. I got a lot out of it. I thought the music was fantastic. I loved the supporting cast. I loved the heel turns and the revelations and the twists. I think there's a comparison to Saltburn there. They both spoke to me in, I think, similar ways. So I wanted to recognize that one on my list.
Wow, I love that. I didn't expect you to pick that, and I totally get why you did, though. That's really great. And I said early in the episode, I was like, oh, I forgot we watched that. And like, that was actually really a special experience. Yeah, I love that. Okay, my last one. I think you know it.
I do.
It's Hogwarts Legacy. Y'all, this has been my gaming year. I am now a gamer. I'm very proud of myself. Hogwarts Legacy came out in February. I am planning to do a big Hogwarts Legacy episode because I have so much to say about it. So I won't say a ton here. I'll just say, as somebody who did not play video games growing up, was very new to gaming, and felt very intimidated by and incapable of playing anything that was beyond the original Nintendo with, the D-pad and A and B, when I was, in my early 20s, and had been unable to play a game where you have to control the camera, like physically could not do it. This game came out, and because it was so beautifully done, and because it was in a world that I love, and I got to do so many fun things, it was a gateway drug into so many other games.
Third-person games in general.
Right. And like open world. I tried Breath of the Wild. You were like, Maggie, you're going to love Breath of the Wild. It's so fun and expansive. And I was like, I don't know where to go. And I was so like like held back by the I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do, I feel lost thing, that I just was like, I don't think open world games are for me. And then of course I played Hogwarts Legacy.
RPGs,
and
action games.
I can't tell you how much fun I had playing this game. I've played it all the way through once and about halfway through a second playthrough. And I like almost 100%ed my first playthrough. It was a really special gaming experience, and I'm really excited to talk about it in our big episode. But that, I think, really defines my year, is playing Hogwarts Legacy over and over and over. Like sometimes in a really like engaged way where like headphones are in, I'm paying attention to the story, the music, everything. And then sometimes like in a passive, like it's early in the morning, I want to do something to kind of help wake myself up, I'm just gonna like casually do one little side quest in Hogwarts Legacy while I drink my coffee. Like you can do it in so many different ways. It was really special.
The world is so beautifully and passionately rendered from not just the movies but also the books, where it becomes transportive.
Yes.
And that's the highest compliment you could give any sort of IP game like this.
Absolutely.
But
and sorry, go ahead.
The expansions they give this world feel true.
Yes, right. Because it's not just like if you don't know, it doesn't take place during Harry Potter's timeline. It's at the beginning of the 20th century or maybe the end of the 19th. It's kind of hard to tell. Because, you know, wizard costumes are different than human costumes. But so it's so different. And so there are like things that are different, you know, aside from the Harry Potter world that you're used to, but it still feels like it so belongs in it. And it doesn't feel like I'm watching a Fantastic Beasts movie either. Like it's separate from that.
Well, that's
too.
what I was going to mention, because this is quite a discerning fan base. If you look at the way the Fantastic Beasts movies were pretty soundly rejected, if you look at the way Cursed Child was justifiably rejected, Hogwarts Legacy becoming the top-selling game of 2023, outstripping Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I think that's a testament to how correctly they understood this world. It's the same feeling I had watching Andor relative to Star Wars.
Yeah,
Hogwarts
sure.
Legacy is the best Wizarding World content I think we've gotten since Deathly Hallows Part 2.
The accessibility features on this game, like the way that it welcomes you, and not that it's the only game to be accessible, but it has so many features that help you feel comfortable playing the game if you're not used to playing games like this. And like it makes it impossible to lose, right? There's still a challenge, and you still feel accomplished when you succeed at something, when you like solve a puzzle, or when you get to a place, or you know, defeat this thing. But it doesn't feel like this is too hard, I can't play it, this game is not for me. The game was so good, and I can't wait to do our big episode about it.
I'm trying not to say too much.
I know, man. Like should I get into it right now? No. But man, that game was so good, and I loved it so much, and it was really really special, and I'm so glad that I got to play it. So that's our 2023. So many good things, so many good works of art that we got to dive into and play with and think about and engage with. What were your favorites of 2023?
Yes, please. Our categories, if you want to drop your answers down in the comments, you can email us secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com, or leave a comment on our Patreon, where you can get the whole back catalog of bonus episodes we talked about earlier, and a new one every month. We did 2023 release, 2023 discovery, 2023 surprise, horror movie, comic, book. Any of those options we're excited to hear, and we will take those answers in the comments as recommendations.
Absolutely.
And hopefully try to cover some of those things in future episodes.
Yes, and did you say YouTube comment? If you're on YouTube, you can comment below. So there's also that. Also, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. That is really awesome. And if you're on a podcast platform, you can, I don't even know, I can't keep up, but there are things you can subscribe or follow or whatever. Add our podcast to your thing. Just do that. Add it to your thing. That would be so great. Thank you. Leave a review if you have the time. But thank you for such a great year. I guess now, technically, when this comes out, it is 2024.
Yes, it is.
So happy 2024.
Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us on the wonderful roller coaster ride of 2023. We'll be back here on Friday with a new Game of Thrones episode, talking about the next chapter, and then on the following Tuesday with a brand new Curveball episode.
That is right. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Happy 2024. We'll see you in the next one.